So the format, what we're going to do today when we show these episodes, we've got 3 more after this, is we're going to have Alan Savory. Alan, why don't you come up on stage with us? This is our founder. I know most of you in the room here know him. We're going to have Alan do what we're going to call Alan Savory Uncensored. So he's going to talk for a few minutes about the film. He's going to drop some curse words, so it's going to get gangsta rap in here. That's where the uncensored comes from. While he's doing that, if you guys have questions, the cards on your seats are for you to write a question, and then just raise that up, and I'll grab that, and then we'll ask Alan a couple of questions, and then we'll have our panel come up, and we'll talk a little bit more about the episodes with a lot of the characters from the film. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Alan. Are you good to go?
No.
Rock and roll. All right.
Thank you. Thank you for all being here. As we look at that, the theme there in so many ways, and it came out, and I think I made the points, is we have to shift public opinion. And thanks to all of you and many more, we're beginning to face the reality. The greatest way to do that is through the food, the fibers, the things that Daniela spoke so ably about. And what we've got to shift is really from the fact that livestock is blamed more than anything else for desertification, playing a major role in worldwide violence, etc., to understanding that only livestock now can save civilization as we know it. Because technology, fire, resting land, the other things available to us as humans simply cannot solve this biological problem of desertification, if we just look at that part of it. And what we have to overcome is centuries of belief. We do not have any science to overcome. The science is 1,000% on our side. There is absolutely no science available to defend the position of the beliefs that overgrazing causes desertification. There is no science to protect that. Now, one of the things we're up against, and so I'm going to, in the theme of the revolution we're trying to get, we've got to tackle all the areas where our main problems are coming from, where people are blocking us from informing the public better. And one of those, I regret to say, is literally hundreds of wonderful people. They're celebrities, they're film stars, they're extremely wealthy, they have millions of fans, they believe they're doing the right thing, and they're spearheading, funding, and driving a vegan and vegetarian movement that is growing. Now, I want to speak to you and get you to speak to them where you can. If anybody wants to be vegan or vegetarian for their own personal, spiritual, or health reasons, good luck. And I have no right to interfere with that, neither do any of us. If they believe that, and that is their belief, and that is their life. Now, if they are, as these hundreds of celebrities are doing, are driving this movement for ethical, humane, or environmental reasons, then accidentally, and none of them intend it, accidentally, they are endangering all of humanity, all of life. It is not ethical, it is not humane, and it is not doing any good for the environment. Now that will come out, it came out in this. Let me just briefly touch on those things. Environmentally, you know the reason now, that nothing but livestock properly run can reverse climate desertification and its role in climate change. Now, they're absolutely right. Anybody who opposes factory production of livestock. That is evil. It should be illegal in an intelligent, informed society. It is environmentally destructive, destructive to our health, economically destructive to the nation in the long run. It has no redeeming feature. We should never be doing it. Likewise, people cutting tropical humid forests to plant pastures to run livestock, that should be illegal to do. It is so endangering the world. So it's rightful to be angry about that, but not about the livestock. They are not causing it. It is our management that's causing it. Okay, so environmentally, we just have to have livestock properly managed, as we will talk about often. Now, ethically, why is it not right to be vegan or vegetarian ethically? To be ethical, and I once had a discussion with a close friend of the Dalai Lama about this, and I said, is he ethical? And he said, yes. And I said, I don't believe so. I don't believe any human has been ethical in the history of the world, except perhaps accidentally in some humid environments. To be ethical, we have not only to be ethical to one another as humans, but ethical to all life. We are just one life form, and if we're not ethical to all life, then we're not being ethical, in my mind, all right? And we cannot be ethical if we are destroying most life through desertification and our attitude to the livestock. And also, if we want to be ethical, we have to be ethical to all humans. If we just take that aspect, well, if you take the vast region across North Africa, bigger than the whole United States, then up into China and to India, all that land with millions of people now flooding into Europe and changing the face of Europe, all of that land, only about 5% can actually grow crops. 95% of that land, approximately, can only support people, humans, and all life, like we're talking about today, through the products of animals. So if we want to be ethical to humans just here and say, don't eat meat, be a vegan, etc., what are we doing to those millions of humans by condemning the livestock, etc.? Are we being ethical to them? They are dying. Their families are dying. They're suffering incredible violence. That is not being ethical. So we need to think about these things more deeply. And then humane. It is not, we all want to be humane, and livestock operators do. I've never known a livestock operator not love their animals, right? We want to be humane. But by not killing animals to eat them, you are not necessarily being humane. Because if we don't kill animals at the end of their lives humanely, how do they die? They don't live forever. They die by natural causes. I'm getting close to that myself, so I'm very conscious of it. I'm in the departure lounge, so my end is due soon. Now, I would rather be humanely euthanized than leave it to nature. Nature is cruel, and my end might be terrible. And I hope I'll euthanize myself and be intelligent enough to do that, rather than let nature end me. We all have to die, and nature is not kind. We can be more humane. Thank you.
I didn't see any hands go up. Did anybody have a card? Okay, well, with that, we are going to move forward to our panel. If I can get Will, Taylor, I don't know where Taylor went, and Mike. We're coming up, yeah. Okay, last call for questions. All right, I think
Are these questions for you or me?
No, we're good. Thank you, Alan.
Okay, so we're all up now. How are you? Didn't see you.
All right.
So we all just sit here.
No, you come back down and then
okay.
We'll pull you up on the next one. All right. All right. Well, I'm going to start with Taylor. So Taylor, tell us about Epic. We saw him introducing the film. Tell us a little bit more. Tell us about how you're intentionally moving into this regenerative space. And then if you could, kind of briefly introduce us through your relationships with the Savory Institute, General Mills, and White Oak Pastures.
Sure. My name is Taylor Collins. My wife, Katie, and I started Epic 3 years ago, and we started the brand making protein bars using animal muscle meat. And we've since then expanded the brand to really embody this nose to tail approach to creating nourishing foods. And we do, tallows, bone broth. We do some organ meat products now, and it's a pretty interesting brand, and it's been a fun journey. At the heart of what we do lies two purposes, and the first is to reclaim high-quality animal protein as a superfood in the mind of consumers. And so we do that through consumer education as well as the accessibility of that high-quality animal protein. And then the second part of our mission is, just as animal protein can be very nourishing and healing for our own bodies, we educate consumers about the connection to animals and their ability to heal and nourish landscapes. And that's what we do at Epic. We've been involved with the Savory Institute since the beginning. They've been an invaluable resource for us. They inspire us. They've provided us validation and resources referencing data. They've connected us with partners. We absolutely love them. We're very thrilled to have them in our lives. Will Harris, as he mentioned in the video, we came across each other's paths at Allen's Ranch in Zimbabwe. Yeah. And we've been able to do incredible things with Will. We buy as much regenerative, holistically managed protein as he can sell us. And we've done a lot of really cool partnerships in this past year. We're selling his pastured turkeys on our website right now. We put together a Christmas holiday whole animal gift set together. We've done some seasonal one-offs, and we developed a internal sourcing protocol for Epic for all our new suppliers. And then our relationship with General Mills. Katie and I sold the business to General Mills in January of 2016, and we did that in order to accelerate the impact that Epic was having on the planet. And we've been doing that. It's been, 11 months now, approximately, and it's been a great ride. We've invested a lot of money into regenerative agriculture, grown a lot of supply chains, and done a lot of great things together.
Very cool. So Will, explain the difference that you've experienced from going when you were, a conventional commodity rancher to, now where, you've got some direct market, but you also have really deep, close, intimate relationships with these guys. How has that changed for you, and what's your vision for that as it grows?
Previously, we were a monoculture beef cattle farm, and the entire focus of me and my family and the people that work there was to squeeze as many pounds of beef out of the farm as we could at the lowest possible price, lowest possible cost. Felt very good about that. We started down the road towards holistic management and learned that the monoculture would not support itself without the industrial tools. We gave up the tools, the monoculture started to crumble, we added other species. Today we pasture raise 5 red meat species and hand butcher them on the farm, 5 poultry species and hand butcher them on the farm, and eggs and vegetables and other things. And the shift is completely different. It's no longer about how much can we produce at what lowest possible cost. It's what do we need to do for this land to make it better? What do we need to do for these animals to make it better? And the products that we sell at Taylor is just kind of what spins off of it. And of course it provides capital, it's like blood pumping through our bodies. It enables us to go another day. Finding partners like Epic has allowed us to focus on what we're good at, the land and the animals. I went to the University of Georgia, I majored in animal science. There was a box for marketing, I didn't check that. So it's just been great having these partners. They've helped us out of tight situations. We had a customer that left us with a bunch of ground beef that we thought we had a home for. I called Taylor, and Taylor said, yeah, we got it. So, that just lifted a burden.
Right. Yeah. Taylor, in the film, you talk about the difference between sustainable, restorative, and regenerative, and how that's a commitment that you as a brand are making. Give a little bit more context of what that means to you, and why you're so excited about regenerative, and that land-based component is really driving you into the storm, as you say, and moving to the next step.
Sure. We source all three, sustainable, restorative, and regenerative. And for us, it's interesting within the natural foods community and grocery stores at large, consumers talk about sustainable as the gold standard almost, like that's the reference point of the pinnacle of agriculture production. And it's really interesting. So we really put a lot of mindfulness to deconstructing that word. And for us, sustainable means nothing more than maintaining homeostasis and status quo. So we're not necessarily degenerating or destroying the land, but we're also not building and healing the land. And so it's kind of the base standard sourcing level at Epic. And then when you go above that, restorative is moving in the right directions. It's starting to think about things a little bit more holistically, adding benefit to the land or the system and enriching it. But then when you hit that regenerative level, I mean, that's as good as it gets. That's a sweet spot for us. And that's really the conversation that we're trying to have with consumers and educate them that there is a regenerative option. And I mean, that just makes us feel so good to be able to heal land, impact rural economies, make healthy, nourishing products for consumers, and enrich the lives of animals that we use in our products.
So Mike, you're an organic buyer at General Mills.
Yes.
And we were talking last night about the challenges you face in supply of enough of those kind of ingredients, and then the supply chain challenges of getting them there. Do you think we have a shortage of that product in the marketplace, or do you think the right mechanisms aren't there to aggregate it and move it through the space in a differentiated way?
Long answer to that. So I'll say a couple things. With many organic ingredients that we currently source, we would consider ourselves in sort of a net short environment. So we do have to really build some new supply chains or manage the supply chains differentially to secure enough volume. But then the flip side of that is, I would say that some of the supply is proportional to the folks that are willing to pay more of a true cost for food in the marketplace right now. So as that increases with things like the video we just saw, which is what I consider authentic consumer education, that demand will continue to grow. It is growing, so that's why there's someone at General Mills with the title organic buyer, because there used to not be. So it's growing, right? And as that continues to grow, then the supply chains do grow. But it's not easy. It's always an uphill battle. I mean, so Will, which are you, regenerative, holistic, or completely efficient?
Oh, well, through holistic management, we have reached the point that it's regenerative.
Yeah.
What was the other one?
But while I'm playing around, when I met Will, his priority, I think, I'm speaking for you, is not number one efficiency. There are other things there that are more important in that value system. And so that means that we're struggling with the supply because...
I heard some whispers in the audience of holistic context.
Yeah, that balance of efficiency and really best practices for the land, it creates a period of time where there's a lag for that supply to catch up.
You mentioned a concept of true cost of your food. Just give us a brief riff on that so that everybody knows what that means.
Yeah, I think leaning toward the technical definition of it, we would call it trying to encompass some of the costs to the environment. So we'd call them externalities, but things that aren't in that cost model on paper when a vendor comes and says, here's the price of beef. So trying to encompass, well, is there land degradation or excessive chemical runoff hurting local water supplies? Are we factoring in those environmental costs to the line item level? And then, but more softly, as a buyer at General Mills, whether we're buying conventional commodities or organics, we really do try to meet the people at the origin of the supply chain and consider the best value vendor. So that does not always equal the least cost vendor. It equals a vendor that, for example, with this brand, presents very low brand risk. So we don't want surprises, and we don't want a feedlot showing up in the news. That really hurts this brand. It hurts the credibility with the consumer. And so I'd rather pay more to manage that risk, right? So that ultimately the consumers have credibility that even though there's a big company behind the Epic brand, that we're doing the right thing. So that's my long answer on that. Sort of trying to think about true cost and true value.
So the long of it is right now most people aren't paying the true cost. Yeah.
I mean, I think we all buy things from textiles and clothing to food where if you really knew the true cost, it would be quite expensive. I'm an organic buyer, but I have very few pieces of organic cotton clothing, for example.
Yeah,
I'm still getting there,
yeah.
and it's expensive.
That's right.
So.
That's right. And Taylor, you guys, when it was you and Katie on your own, and then even as it's become General Mills, you guys have made a really strong commitment to investing back to those suppliers and into the supply chain, creating market opportunities. Will is a perfect example of that, not the only one that you guys have touched in this process. Tell us a little bit about your commitment to that, why it's important, and why you think other brands should do the same.
Sure. It's incredibly important that other brands follow our lead. I mean, our ability to communicate and tell these stories has been one of the driving factors that's differentiated Epic from a lot of other consumer packaged good meat companies and given us such a competitive advantage, pitching to buyers and educating consumers. People want to get behind brands that are doing better things for the planet. And we still Katie and I run this business autonomously in Austin. So General Mills is there to help out when we want help, but we also keep them far away on some things that we don't want any help with. Our ability to form these relationships with White Oak Pasture, I mean, we've been out to their farm probably 6 or 7 times this year. Katie and I and his daughter Jenny and my wife Katie, they even synced up having babies at the same time.
We're on arranged marriage.
Yeah.
My grandson.
Jack and Scout are going to be getting married in about 18 months, or 18 years, to make this partnership even stronger. But I mean, if other brands can get on board, that's more power for them. And it's just, we are the voices for a lot of the producers doing the right things. We're good at storytelling. We're good at connecting with consumers, educating buyers, telling buyers why they should have regeneratively sourced protein on their shelves and why it's different than sustainably sourced. No one else is going to have that conversation with them. And they're really influential people that are creating the assortment that consumers can purchase from.
So this one's for all of you. How has the Savory Institute helped you guys build relationships in this community and connect? All 3 of you here are connected to one another. How has that facilitation been, and what value has that provided to you? And let's start with Mike on that one.
I feel like I'm just getting started with the group. This is my first Savory event in person, and I've got some of your PDFs from your website on my desktop, and I'm working through reading them. So that's a great thing that there are some research resources available through the Institute. But most impactful so far, I will have to say, is that through Savory and through Taylor, I was able to meet Will Harris. And then my boss, she was so inspired, she went back to General Mills and got other sustainability leaders at the company to go and visit his ranch. And I think what that's leading to is a conversation at a big company level where the word regenerative is being thrown around the office a bit more. And there are a lot of big companies doing great things, and they have some of our peer companies have great sustainability statements, our commitment to sustainable agriculture, to green, responsible supply chain. Now we've got some bigwig leaders at General Mills that have been inspired by a Savory Hub that are trying, I think they're going to the next level. They're going beyond sustainable in a way. And these are just words, but there's something there when you have the global sustainability VP for a big company like General Mills using that word. It's kind of neat. So
That's amazing. Taylor.
Yeah, this same VP guy that Mike talks about, Katie and I met right when we were acquired by General Mills, and we were sitting with this guy and telling him about regenerative holistic management and the work of Alan Savory, and this guy was just in another world, he was daydreaming. And then he just interrupted me and said, "Have you guys heard of the cow of the future?" And he's talking about this genetically modified cow that won't fart and has grain. And so it was just holy moly, this is what we're working with day one to start. And yeah, we've been able to pass these guys off to some of our ranching partners to get on the soil and really get educated and see it for themselves. The Savory Institute has provided us with tons of data and research to help educate them and make them feel a little bit more secure about taking some of these positions. And it's coming. Yeah, this guy's coming around. He's starting to believe.
But I gotta say, this is a good, real example of what you just said. So, I'm sorry I'm talking again, but a guy, Jerry Lynch is our head of sustainability, and a guy like him, he has to factor in all these different ideas out there for every part of our supply chain about how to operate a business in a way that doesn't hurt the world. So there, he must every week get pitches about how's the future and green energy for our manufacturing plants, and he has to factor all these trade-offs. So it is neat that this is now on his radar.
For sure. Well,
So I was a very industrial cattle farmer. I became disillusioned with the unintended consequences and started practicing holistic management, literally practicing, before I ever heard of Alan Savory. And I thought I'd gotten pretty damn good at it. And then I heard Alan speak, and he knew exponentially more than I did, which was pretty humbling and pissed me off a little bit. But through his teachings and the network of other hubs and other holistic practicing managers that I've met, it's just been great. And of course, through them, I've also met my favorite customer, my grandnephew, son-in-law. What does that make us?
Possibly.
Anyway, it's just been a great connection. I'm not in a silo like I thought I was. Holy smokes. I did not know that.
it's like, it's not me.
He's got to move the herd.
That's right.
That shit ain't funny.
So we'll stay with you since the alarm said we should. Coming back to the consumers and the consumer revolution, how do you feel that consumers should be acquiring their meat and their food in general at this point? What questions should they be asking, and what needs to change? What's your vision, let's say, for the next 10, 20 years for the industry of regenerative meat production and food in general?
Well, my father's generation, post-World War II, industrialized, commoditized, and centralized food production brought about incredible efficiencies. And it was done to make food cheap and abundant and safe in one sense of the word. And it was just wildly successful. It did that. But that pendulum swung too far. There were a lot of unintended consequences that fell on the backs of the animals and the land and the rural economies. And now there are, I'm going to say a small number at this point of enlightened consumers that want food produced differently. And when you give up those industrial tools that reductionist science gave us to make food cheap and abundant, you add cost back to the food. So unless the consumer chooses to support those costs, there won't be a revolution. It's in the hands of the consumers. We farmers don't get to decide. You food manufacturers don't get to decide. The consumer will decide, because the consumer will finance it if it happens.
Amen.
So Taylor, last question. You've been our partners in this program and moving forward that Danielle's going to talk more about this afternoon. But tell us from your perspective, where do you see a value in an outcome-based verification program in the marketplace tied to health of the land, and maybe that even being consumer-facing, something that they can engage with? Tell us your thoughts on that and why you've been so adamant about being a part of this.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the day that we have a consumer-facing seal that educates to consumers how this product is different from the product next to it on the shelf, that's going to be incredibly empowering for all the producers and all the manufacturers that support this system. And when I think back at programs like the non-GMO verification program or the USDA organic seal, I mean, that was really the first time that consumers were able to tangibly have products in their hand and connect those claims to their own health and the land back to the product that they were about to invest in and purchase and feed their families. So I think very much the same outcome-based seal that the Savory Institute's been working on it's just going to be absolutely game-changing for this revolution. Really ignite it, really put it front and center, be the most meaningful, impactful seal that a consumer could look for at the grocery store.
Because those existing programs, they're all prescriptive. Do this, don't do that, but there's no measurement that's taken. There's no empirical data behind it that happens on the land. And so the real value comes when can we take empirical data and move that through the supply chain to where people know this made the land better, and I know it for sure.
I think it was about 2002 or 3 in a mainstream beef publication. It was the first time I'd ever seen humane and farm animal used in the same paragraph, much less sentence. And that's only 12 or dozen or so years ago. And now every meat and poultry company in the world at least gives a head nod, a greenwash, to animal welfare. And I really believe that regenerative agriculture today is where animal welfare was 10, 12 years ago. It's just beginning to be part of consumer focus.
All right. Well, thank you. Let's give these guys a round of applause.